Admiral Susan Carter stood perfectly still as the young officer placed the ceremonial medal on the velvet cushion. 50 years of service to the United Earth Navy, and now it was ending. The massive carrier Artemis hummed around her, the vibration so familiar she could feel it in her bones. 5,000 crew members and officers filled the ship's main assembly hall, all standing at attention as Susan prepared to give her retirement speech. "Admiral," her aide whispered, "I'm sorry to interrupt, but we're receiving an urgent communication from Central Command." Susan nodded slightly. Even at her own retirement ceremony, duty came first. "Continue with the proceedings. Captain Kelly can accept the medal on my behalf," she said quietly, before following her aide through a side door. The Artemis Command Center was a hub of controlled activity. Officers monitored stations surrounding a central holographic display currently showing the ship's position in Earth orbit. As Susan entered, the room fell silent, all eyes turning to her. "Report," she said simply. Lieutenant Greg Howard, a communications specialist with 10 years of experience, looked unusually pale. "Ma'am, we've received a signal using the Crystal Comm protocols. It originated from Kepler 186F. Susan froze. The Crystal communication system was humanity's most closely guarded technological secret. Based on the strange crystalline formations, found on only a few worlds, it allowed instant communication across vast distances, bypassing traditional limitations. But it was still experimental, with only key outposts having access to the technology." "What was the message?" she asked. "A distress call, ma'am. The research outpost is under attack by unknown alien vessels. Initial identification suggests Zarkon origin." Susan's face hardened. The Zarkons. Insectoid harvesters with a reputation for stripping worlds of resources, viewing other species as either obstacles or assets to be used. Humanity had carefully avoided direct contact with them, maintaining the facade of being a minor, resource-poor civilization not worth the Zarkon's attention. "Show me everything," she ordered. The holographic display shifted, showing sensor readings transmitted with the distress call. 7 Zarkon vessels in orbit around Kepler 186F, and dropships already heading for the surface. The small research outpost had minimal defenses, just enough to handle local wildlife or the occasional pirate, foolish enough to target a human facility. "How many personnel at the outpost?" Susan asked. 12, ma'am. Research team and security detail commanded by Alice Wright. Susan remembered Alice. Smart, resourceful, and as stubborn as they came. If anyone could keep an outpost alive against impossible odds, it would be her. But even Alice couldn't hold out against a Zarkon harvesting force for long. "Time to reach Kepler 186F at maximum speed?" she asked. The navigation officer consulted his displays. "Even with our fastest ships, 3 days minimum." Susan nodded once, decision made. "This ceremony is over. Lieutenant Howard, send authorization code Omega-7 to all fleet commanders. Full mobilization, effective immediately." The command. Center fell silent. Authorization Omega-7 was not a drill or exercise. It was the code for humanity's hidden strength to be revealed at last. "Are you certain, Admiral?" asked Captain Frank Moore, her second in command. "Once this is done—" "I'm certain," Susan interrupted. "Commence immediate jump preparations and contact the Solar Guard. All hidden shipyards are to activate." As officers rushed to carry out her orders, Susan turned to the viewport, looking out at the peaceful blue curve of Earth below. For a century, humanity had maintained a careful deception. After their disastrous first contact with the Aldebarans had nearly led to Earth's colonization, humans had learned a harsh lesson. In the galaxy, you were either a predator or prey. Rather than build a few obvious warships, Earth had constructed its defenses in secret. Hidden shipyards throughout the Sol system, concealed beneath moons or within asteroid clusters, had been producing vessels for decades. The Artemis, officially classified as a research and diplomatic vessel, was in reality the most powerful warship ever constructed by human hands, and it was just one of many. On Mars, beneath the surface of the seemingly abandoned southern hemisphere, massive bay doors began to slide open. revealing row upon row of sleek destroyers and cruisers. In Jupiter's orbit, seemingly inactive space stations transformed as armored panels, retracted to reveal missile batteries and energy weapons. From Neptune's clouds rose specialized stealth vessels designed for deep reconnaissance. Back on the Artemis, Susan watched as reports flooded in. The Solar Guard had activated the emergency protocols, and every hidden facility was now launching vessels. Ships that had been disguised as merchant vessels or mining platforms dropped their civilian transponder codes and revealed their true military designations. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Howard. "We're receiving confirmations from Fleet. Commanders, the 7th Fleet will reach Kepler 186F first, followed by the 3rd and 12th. Susan nodded. "Open a channel to all vessels." A moment later, she stood before a communications array, her image being transmitted to thousands of ships now revealing themselves across the Sol system. "This is Admiral Susan Carter. As many of you know, I was scheduled to retire today after 50 years of service. That retirement is now on hold. 1 hour ago, we received a distress call from our research outpost on Kepler 186F. They are under attack by Zarkon forces." She paused, letting the information sink in. "For a century, we have hidden our true strength from the galaxy. We have allowed ourselves to be seen as weak, as unworthy of notice. Today, that deception ends. The men and women at that outpost are holding on, fighting against impossible odds. They deserve nothing less than everything we can give." Around the Sol system, ship after ship engaged their jump drives, disappearing in flashes of light as they began the journey to Kepler 186F. "Humanity is not prey," Susan continued, her voice firm. "Today the galaxy learns what we are truly capable of. To all vessels, your jump coordinates are being transmitted now. We move with full combat readiness. The 7th Fleet will secure the system upon arrival, with all following fleets to establish a defensive perimeter." She took a deep breath. "For 100 years we have prepared for this moment. We will not fail our people on Kepler 186F. And after today, no species will ever again mistake humanity's restraint for weakness." The Artemis shuddered as its massive jump drive engaged. In a flash of controlled energy, the enormous carrier vanished from Earth orbit, beginning its journey across the stars. Behind it, thousands of vessels followed, the largest armada humanity had ever assembled, summoned by a single desperate call for help. In the darkness between stars, Susan Carter stood on her bridge, watching as hundreds of ships jumped alongside the Artemis. Her retirement medal remained unclaimed in the assembly hall, her speech never given. Instead, she was doing what she had trained her entire life to do, leading humanity's defense, and the Zarkons had no idea what was coming for them. Commander Alice Wright stared at the amber warning lights flashing across her console. The small research outpost on Kepler 186F was never meant to be on the front lines of anything. It was just 12 people studying strange crystals on a distant planet. Now those same crystals might be their only hope for survival. "Commander, 3 more ships just appeared in orbit," said John Miller, his fingers dancing across the communication station. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he worked. "That makes 7 total. Nothing like any vessels we've seen before." Alice walked to the main viewport. The research station was built into the side of a mountain, offering a sweeping view of the valley, below with its strange forest of purple-leafed trees. The sky above was clear blue, betraying no hint of the danger lurking beyond the atmosphere. "Have they responded to our hails?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "No, ma'am." "Nothing but silence," John replied. He hesitated before adding, "Should I activate the beacon?" Alice felt the weight of the decision. The Crystal Comm beacon was experimental technology, reverse-engineered from the very formations they had been studying. It could potentially send a distress signal across vast distances, far beyond normal communication channels. But using it would reveal much about human capabilities to whoever was up there. Before she could decide, Dr. Sam Kelly burst into the command center, his lab coat stained with the blue residue from handling the crystals. "Something's happening with the crystal network," he said between heavy breaths. "They're all resonating at frequencies we've never recorded before. It's like they're responding to whatever's up there. A new alarm blared, cutting through the tension. Multiple objects entering the atmosphere, called out Security Chief Linda Peterson from her station. Trajectories suggest they're heading directly for us. Alice made her decision. John, activate the beacon. Send everything we have about the ships. Sam, what can you tell me about the crystal reaction? As John's fingers flew across his console, initiating the complex sequence that would power up the crystal comm beacon, Sam pulled up readings on a nearby screen. It's almost like the crystals recognize the ships, he explained, pointing to wave patterns that pulsed in time with each other. These formations exist across multiple star systems. We've only found them on 3 planets so far, but if our theories are correct, they could be forming a galaxy-wide network, Alice finished for him. And our beacon taps into that network. The main lights flickered as power diverted to the experimental communications array. Deep beneath the outpost, the massive crystal formation they had built their station around began to glow with internal light, a blue-green luminescence that seemed to shimmer with intelligence. Outside, the first enemy dropships became visible, sleek, chitinous crafts that moved with insect-like precision through the atmosphere. Their design was unmistakably alien, with no concessions to human aesthetic or engineering principles. Beacon is active and transmitting, John announced. Signal strength is, this can't be right. He checked his readings again. It's amplifying far beyond our projected capabilities. The crystal is boosting our signal somehow. Alice nodded, a grim smile forming on her face. Send everything, our coordinates, sensor readings of the ships, all of it. She turned to Linda. How long until they reach us? 15 minutes, maybe less, the security chief replied, already distributing weapons to the command staff. I've ordered all non-security personnel to the shelter areas. The science team is moving the most valuable research samples now. The outpost had been designed with some defensive capabilities. They weren't completely helpless, but those defenses had been intended to ward off dangerous native wildlife or the occasional pirate, not a coordinated alien invasion force. Sam looked up from his console with wide eyes. Commander, I think I've identified them from our xenobiology database. The ship design matches partial records from a trading vessel that encountered them near the Orion Spur. He pulled up an image on the main screen. A tall insectoid being with multifaceted eyes and armored exoskeletal plates. Zarkons, he said. They're supposed to be nomadic, harvesting resources from uninhabited systems. There are only rumors about them attacking populated worlds. Well, those rumors just became our reality, Alice replied, checking the charge on the pulse pistol Linda had handed her. What else do we know about them? Not much. They're believed to have a hierarchical hive structure, highly coordinated in groups, technologically advanced but reportedly dismissive of other species, Sam explained. The few documented encounters suggest they view most other life forms as resources rather than equals. The building shuddered as something impacted nearby. Not a direct hit, but close enough to rattle the reinforced windows. They're firing on us, Linda reported. Looks like they're targeting our communications array first. Alice turned to her small crew, just 4 of them in the command center, with 8 more scientists and security personnel elsewhere in the facility. All that stood between humanity's research and whatever these Zarkons wanted. John, confirm. The beacon is still transmitting, she ordered. Signal is strong, he replied. Whatever they hit, it wasn't the main array. The crystal is still amplifying our transmission. Another impact, closer this time, sent dust falling from the ceiling. Everyone to your emergency stations, Alice commanded. We've sent the call for help. Now we need to stay alive long enough for someone to answer it. As they moved to their positions, she paused at the door of the command center, looking back at the main screen where the image of the alien still displayed. In all her years of space service, humanity had encountered many species, but they had always been careful. After the early missteps of first contact protocols, Earth had adopted a cautious approach to galactic politics, never revealing too much, always appearing weaker than they truly were. These Zarkons, attacking without provocation or communication, had no idea what they had just done. No idea whose call for help was now racing across the galaxy, carried by a crystal network they clearly didn't understand. No idea what kind of response would be coming. Alice sealed the blast door behind her, heading for the defensive control room deep inside the mountain. Above, the first Zarkon landing craft touched down in the valley, releasing tall, armored figures that moved with disturbing coordination toward the outpost. "Let's hope someone's listening," she whispered to herself as she quickened her pace. The SOS was away. Now the fight for survival began. The Zarkon commander, Vexthul, clicked his mandibles together in mild frustration. The human outpost was proving more troublesome than expected. Their initial scans had shown minimal defensive capabilities, yet his first wave of warriors had already suffered casualties. Not many, but enough to be concerning. "Status report," he demanded, his translator converting the clicks and chirps of his native language into the standard galactic trade tongue. His second in command, a smaller Zarkon with battle-scarred carapace, approached the command platform. "We have secured the outer perimeter of the human facility. 2 harvester units lost to hidden explosive devices. 3 warriors injured by projectile weapons. The humans have retreated deeper into the mountain." Vexthul's compound eyes shifted, taking in the 3-dimensional display showing the layout of the human research station. Their scouts had mapped most of it now, though the deeper sections remained unknown. Sensors indicated strange energy readings coming from deep within the mountain. "What about their communications?" he asked. "Disabled as ordered," his second replied. "Their standard transmission equipment was destroyed in our first attack." Yet something bothered Vexthul. The human outpost had sent some kind of signal just before their arrival. The energy burst had been unusual, not matching any known human communication technology previously observed. The records on humans were limited. They were a relatively minor species from a resource-poor system, not worth the Zarkon's full attention until now. But the unusual crystal formations on this planet had drawn the interest of the Hive, and the humans had conveniently built their outpost right on top of the largest crystal cluster. "Send in the secondary wave," he ordered. "I want those humans captured alive if possible. Their knowledge of the crystal formations may prove useful." As his warriors prepared to advance deeper into the mountain facility, the Zarkon science officer approached, her movements displaying the characteristic nervousness of her caste. "Commander, we are detecting unusual readings at the edge of the system," she reported. "Explain," Vexthul demanded. "There appear to be ripples in space-time, consistent with jump activity," she said, displaying the sensor readings on a nearby screen. "However, the pattern is unusual. The ripples are numerous and appear to be growing in frequency." Vexthul dismissed her concerns with a wave of his upper limb. "Sensor malfunction. No species in this sector possesses significant jump capabilities. The humans barely have interstellar travel, and the nearest known civilization is the Proxima Collective, who have only 3 jump-capable vessels." The science officer chittered uncertainly but didn't argue. In Zarkon society, questioning a superior's judgment too forcefully could result in being recycled back into the breeding pools. Meanwhile, deep beneath the mountain, Dr. Kate Phillips and Security Chief Paul Rogers led the remaining survivors through the narrow tunnels that connected to the main crystal cavern. 3 of their team had been injured in the initial attack, but they had managed to evacuate everyone from the upper levels before the Zarkons broke through the main defenses. "The crystals are still amplifying our signal," Kate said, checking the readings on her portable scanner. The massive crystal formation at the center of the cavern pulsed with blue-green light, illuminating the faces of the 9 humans huddled around it. "I've never seen them this active before." Paul checked the charge on his pulse rifle, the weapon seeming small compared to the enormity of their situation. "You really think someone will come for us? We're pretty far from any human colonies." Kate looked up from her scanner. "I don't know, but something strange is happening with the crystal network. It's not just transmitting our distress call, it's creating some kind of beacon. If my readings are correct, it's marking this exact location across the entire network." "Commander." Alice Wright joined them, her uniform torn and dirty from the fighting. "The Zarkons are regrouping for another push. We've set up the last of our traps in the upper tunnels, but that won't hold them for long." The crystals pulsing increased, the light growing brighter. "Alice," Kate said quietly, "I think the crystals are doing more than just sending our message. I think they're guiding someone here. Back on the Zarkon vessel, the science officer returned to Vexthul with greater urgency, her carapace slightly paled with stress. Commander, the readings have intensified. We are now detecting multiple jump signatures at the edge of the system. These are not sensor malfunctions. Before Vexthul could respond, the tactical officer's alert call drew their attention. Unknown. Vessels detected. Multiple contacts emerging from jump points. The main display shifted to show the outer reaches of the star system. There, appearing in flashes of controlled energy, were ships. Not one or two, but dozens, then hundreds. Impossible, Vexthul chittered, his translator unable to convey the full shock in his voice. The tactical display struggled to keep up as more ships continued to appear. The first wave seemed to be fast-moving destroyers and cruisers, taking up defensive formations as they emerged. Behind them came larger vessels, carriers and dreadnoughts of a design the Zarkons had never encountered before. Match these designs to our database, Vexthul ordered. The tactical officer worked frantically at his station. Matching. Confirmed. The vessels are of human origin, but these designs are not in our records. Our intelligence indicated the humans possessed only 27 warships in total, mostly outdated models used for system defense. Yet the display now showed hundreds of human warships, with more arriving every moment. Their design was sleek and predatory, bristling with weapon systems that the Zarkon sensors couldn't even properly classify. Open a channel to their lead vessel, Vexthul ordered, his voice steadier than he felt. On the planet below, Kate's scanner suddenly beeped with an incoming signal. Something's happening, she told the others, adjusting the device. The crystal network is receiving a transmission. The cavern filled with a projected hologram originating from the central crystal. It showed a starfield view, and at its center, a massive fleet of ships, human ships, arranged in perfect combat formation. That's... Paul started, unable to find the words. That's the 7th Fleet, Alice finished for him, her voice filled with pride and relief. And look, there's the Artemis, Admiral Carter's flagship. The survivors stared in awe at the hologram. None of them had ever seen so many human warships gathered in one place. Such displays of military might were kept hidden from the public, part of Earth's long-standing policy of appearing weaker than they truly were. I had no idea we had so many, Kate whispered, watching as more ships continued to appear in the projection. Alice smiled grimly. And this is just the beginning. The distress call worked. Help is here. In orbit, Vexthul stared at the human vessel that now filled his communication screen. It was enormous, dwarfing his own command ship by at least 5 times. On its bridge stood a human female in a dark uniform adorned with gold markings of rank. This is Admiral Susan Carter of the United Earth Navy, the human said, her voice calm but carrying unmistakable authority. You have attacked a human outpost. You have one opportunity to surrender and withdraw. Vexthul, following standard Zarkon protocol for dealing with lesser species, responded with confidence he didn't entirely feel. This is Commander Vexthul of the Zarkon Harvesting Fleet. You are outnumbered and outmatched. This planet's resources are now claimed by the Zarkon Hive. Withdraw your vessels immediately or be destroyed. The human admiral's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes hardened. I see, she said simply. Then, turning slightly to someone off-screen. Weapons. Free. The first volley from the human fleet came from a single vessel, a destroyer positioned on the fleet's outer edge. A beam of blue-white energy lanced across space, striking the Zarkon flagship's shields with pinpoint precision. The supposedly impenetrable barrier, technology that had protected Zarkon ships for centuries, flickered and failed instantly. On the bridge of his ship, Vexthul staggered as the deck plates trembled beneath his feet. Warning signals blared across every console. Report! He demanded, mandibles clicking rapidly in distress. Forward shields completely disabled, his tactical officer replied, compound eyes wide with shock. The human weapon? We have no record of such technology. It appears to operate on quantum phase principles that bypassed our shield harmonics completely. Before Vexthul could process this information, Admiral Carter's face reappeared on his view screen. "That was a warning shot from our smallest vessel," she said calmly. "The next will come from the Artemis. You will not survive it." Vexthul's mind raced. Everything he knew about humans, everything the entire Zarkon hive knew, suggested they were a minor power with limited military capability. Their ships should have been primitive compared to Zarkon technology. Yet the evidence before him told a different story. "All vessels, defensive formation," he ordered. "Prepare to—" He never finished the command. Across the system, the human fleet moved with coordinated precision. Not just the destroyers and cruisers now, but the massive dreadnoughts and carriers as well. Their weapon systems activated simultaneously, targeting each of the 7 Zarkon ships with overwhelming force. The second volley wasn't a warning. Beams of energy and projectiles moving at near light speed tore through the Zarkon vessels. Ships that had terrorized dozens of star systems, harvested countless worlds, simply came apart under the human assault. In the crystal cavern beneath the research outpost, Kate, Alice, and the other survivors watched the battle through the holographic projection provided by the crystal network. It was like watching a dance. The human fleet moved with beautiful, terrible precision, each ship knowing its exact place and purpose. "I've never seen anything like this," Paul whispered. "Not even in training simulations." Alice nodded. As a military commander, she had been aware that Earth possessed more significant forces than were publicly acknowledged. But seeing the full might of humanity unleashed was something else entirely. "The 7th Fleet was always rumored to be the tip of the spear," she said. "But this is beyond anything I imagined." Above them, the mountain shook as the remaining Zarkon forces on the planet realized something had gone terribly wrong. Their communications with the orbital fleet had gone silent, and now they were retreating, abandoning their assault on the human facility. Kate checked her scanner. "The crystal network is picking up transmissions from the fleet. Admiral Carter is sending a team to extract us." On the bridge of the Artemis, Susan Carter watched as the Zarkon fleet was reduced to drifting debris in less than 15 minutes. Only the command vessel remained, its weapons and propulsion systems disabled but life support intact. She had ensured Vexthul would live to report what he had witnessed to the Zarkon hive. "Status of ground forces?" she asked. "The remaining Zarkons are attempting to reach their landed shuttles," reported Captain Frank Moore. "Special Forces Team Delta has already landed on the far side of the mountain and is moving to intercept." Susan nodded. "Status of the research team?" "Alive and secure. The crystal cavern protected them from the worst of the attack. Captain Lisa Young's team will reach them in approximately 10 minutes. Susan allowed herself a small smile. They had arrived in time. Not just the 7th Fleet, but now the 3rd and 12th as well, with more still emerging from jump points across the system. Nearly 3,000 human warships now surrounded Kepler 186F, a display of military might that would have been unthinkable just days ago. "Open a channel to Vexthul," she ordered. The Zarkon commander appeared on her screen. His once proud posture was now hunched, his compound eyes dimmed with the knowledge of defeat. "You deceived us," he said, his translator giving his words a flat, mechanical tone. The Zarkon hive was informed that humans were a minor species, with limited technology and resources. "And we allowed that belief to persist," Susan replied. "For a century, humanity has been watching, learning, and building. While pretending to be weak, we studied every conflict, every technology, every strategy used by species like yours." She leaned forward slightly. "Your attack on our outpost has forced us to reveal ourselves before we had planned. But make no mistake, what you've seen today is just the beginning. The main armada is still assembling. On the planet's surface, a Special Forces Team Delta, led by Captain Lisa Young, reached the entrance to the Crystal Cavern. The squad of 12 soldiers, wearing advanced combat armor that allowed them to move silently despite its protective capabilities, secured the passage before Lisa signaled the survivors inside. When the blast doors opened, Kate Phillips blinked in the sudden light from the soldiers' equipment. She had never seen combat personnel like these. Their armor seemed to shift colors to match the surrounding stone, and their weapons were of a design she didn't recognize. "Dr. Phillips?" Lisa asked, approaching the scientist. "I'm Captain Young. Admiral Carter sent us to bring you home." As the Special Forces team escorted the survivors toward their extraction vessel, Kate looked up at the sky. The mountain exit gave them a clear view of the space above Kepler 186F. What she saw took her breath away. The sky was filled with human ships, thousands of them, ranging from nimble fighters to massive capital ships that blocked out the sun as they passed overhead. Some were clearly designed for combat, bristling with weapon systems, while others appeared to be support vessels bringing supplies and additional personnel to the system. "I had no idea we had so many," she said, echoing her earlier words. "This?" Lisa smiled, her helmet retracting to reveal her face. "This is just the Rapid Response Force. The main armada is still assembling." Kate stared at her in shock. "There's more?" Lisa nodded, helping Kate into the transport craft that would take them to the Artemis. "For 100 years, Earth has been preparing. The public knows about a few dozen ships used for trade and exploration. The reality is somewhat different." As their vessel lifted off, Kate could see Zarkon warriors being rounded up by human soldiers. The invaders who had seemed so terrifying just hours ago now looked small and confused, surrounded by technology they couldn't comprehend. "What happens now?" she asked Lisa. The captain secured her harness as their ship accelerated toward orbit. Now everything changes. The galaxy thought it knew what humanity was capable of. Today, they learn how wrong they were. The transport rose higher, leaving the atmosphere behind, giving them a full view of the assembled fleet. Humanity's hidden strength now revealed to the stars. News of the battle at Kepler 186F spread across the galaxy faster than anyone could have predicted. The Crystal Network, now understood to be an ancient communication system spanning thousands of light years, carried information about the human victory to distant worlds. Species that had never encountered humans directly now watched recordings of the Zarkon defeat with a mixture of awe and fear. 1 week after the battle, the Galactic Council called an emergency session. The massive chamber located on the neutral world of Nelvara Prime could hold representatives from over 200 species. Today, every seat was filled, and the viewing galleries overflowed with diplomatic staff and media observers from a dozen worlds. At the center of the chamber stood Admiral Susan Carter. She wore her full dress uniform, the golden insignia of the United Earth Navy gleaming under the chamber's lights. Behind her, a small delegation of human representatives waited silently. This was humanity's first official appearance before the full council, an honor usually reserved for species with centuries of interstellar presence. "The council recognizes the representative of Earth," announced the Archon, an ancient Nelvarian whose translucent skin revealed the slow pulse of 3 hearts. "Admiral Carter, you may address the assembly." Susan stepped forward, her posture straight and confident. She had faced Zarkon warships without flinching. The stares of 200 alien diplomats would not intimidate her. "Honored members of A2, the Galactic Council," she began. "For centuries, humanity has been watching, learning, and preparing. We studied your conflicts, your alliances, your technologies. We observed how the strong preyed upon the weak, how resource-rich worlds were stripped by those with superior firepower." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Several representatives of predatory species shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "After our first disastrous contact with the Aldebarans, we made a decision. Humanity would never be prey. We would never allow our worlds to be harvested or our people to be enslaved. Yet neither would we announce our military capabilities and invite challenge or fear." Susan paused, looking around the chamber. Many species were represented here, some peaceful scholars, others ruthless conquerors. All watched her with new interest. For 100 years we built in secret. We allowed ourselves to be seen as a minor power with limited resources and technology. We traded carefully, explored cautiously, and gave no hint of our true capabilities. The main view screen behind her activated, showing the massive human fleet, now gathered at Kepler 186f. Even with only a portion of Earth's forces visible, the display was impressive. Thousands of warships arranged in perfect formation around the small planet. Last week, a human research outpost sent a distress call. 12 of our people, scientists studying an ancient crystal formation, were attacked, without provocation, by a Zarkon harvesting fleet. She let the words hang in the air. Everyone in the chamber knew of the Zarkons and their reputation. What followed was not what the Zarkons expected. The response to that single distress call was the largest mobilization of naval forces this galaxy has seen in 10,000 years. The battle, if it can even be called that, lasted less than 15 minutes. Now the screen showed the aftermath. Zarkon vessels reduced to drifting debris, with only their command ship left intact. Another image appeared. The Zarkon commander, Vexathul, signing a formal surrender document aboard the Artemis. On the third row of the council chamber, the Zarkon representative, hastily dispatched from their homeworld, clicked his mandibles nervously. "We come before the council today not to threaten, not to intimidate, but to introduce ourselves properly for the first time," Susan continued. "Humanity is a peaceful species by preference. We wish to build, to explore, to learn. But make no mistake, we are prepared to defend ourselves with overwhelming force if necessary." In the observation gallery, Dr. Kate Phillips watched with amazement. Just 2 weeks ago, she had been a researcher on a remote outpost, studying crystal formations. Now she was witnessing history at the Galactic Council. Beside her stood Commander Alice Wright and the other survivors from Kepler 186f, all invited to witness humanity's formal introduction to galactic society. "The research conducted at our outpost on Kepler 186f has revealed something remarkable," Susan said, gesturing toward Kate in the gallery. "The crystal formations are part of an ancient communication network, one that spans the galaxy, a network that may have been created by the Forerunners themselves." This announcement caused an even greater stir. The Forerunners were a legendary species believed to have seeded the galaxy with life billions of years ago before vanishing. Evidence of their technology was rare and highly prized. "Humanity offers to share this research with all peaceful species," Susan said. "We seek cooperation, not domination, alliance, not submission, but we will no longer hide our strength or downplay our capabilities." As Susan finished her address, the chamber erupted in discussion. Some representatives huddled with their advisors, while others approached the human delegation directly. The galactic balance of power had shifted overnight. Kate felt a tap on her shoulder and turned to find Captain Lisa Young beside her. "Admiral Carter would like to speak with you after the session," Lisa said. "Your research on the Crystal Network is going to be very important moving forward." Kate nodded, still trying to process everything that had happened. "What do you think will happen now, with humanity revealing itself like this?" Lisa watched as various council members approached Susan, some clearly nervous, others eager to establish new relationships with the suddenly revealed human power. "Everything changes," she replied. "Some species will seek alliances. Others will reassess their plans for expansion. The predators of the galaxy just discovered that what they thought was easy prey has very sharp teeth." From across the chamber, a small delegation approached. Representatives of the Novan Collective, a group of worlds that had long suffered under Zarkon raids. "Are your people truly willing to share your defensive technology?" asked their leader, a slender being with iridescent scales. "Our worlds have been harvested for generations. We have little to offer in return except gratitude." Susan smiled warmly. "That will be more than enough. Earth remembers what it feels like to be vulnerable. We did not build our fleet solely for ourselves." As the conversations continued, news vessels broadcast the proceedings across the galaxy. On 100 worlds, oppressed species watched with new hope as humanity revealed itself, not as conquerors but as potential protectors. The SOS from Kepler 186f hadn't just summoned an armada, it had reshaped the future of the galaxy. On the journey back to Earth, Kate sat with Alice in the observation lounge of the Artemis, watching stars streak by. "Do you ever think about how different things might have been?" Kate asked. If the Zarkons had attacked any other outpost, one without the crystal network? Alice considered this, then shook her head. I think it was always meant to happen this way. Those crystals weren't just sending our message, they were waking something up, something that had been waiting a very long time. Outside the viewport, the stars continued their silent dance, now watched by a humanity that had finally revealed its true place among them.